Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here in the garden. One of the last videos we mentioned fall maintenance tips. Things are certainly slowing down in the garden. It's gorgeous fall weather. We're getting some of our best blooms of the season with those cooler days and mornings. But for the most part, things are slowing down. But there's still a few things you can be doing. We mentioned in the last video, any debris in the garden beds, specifically those old leaves that have disease spores on them, black spot, different types of fungus, powdery mildew, insects. If you can get rid of those in the bed, you'll have a much better start in the spring in terms of disease and also insect prevention. One of the advantages to walking the beds, cutting some blooms for your family or neighbors, but just observing what's going on. A couple things I noticed this afternoon: we still have to water here in eastern North Carolina. We are in a drought. We're expecting some heavy rain this week, but I actually have a few roses showing some signs of water stress. So even though Halloween's on Friday, even though it's not as hot as it is during the summer, keep those roses well watered in addition to cleaning out those rose beds as you prepare for winter. Couple quick hitters with this video. I want to show you some gorgeous fall blooms. We're going to show you Let Freedom Ring, Secret. I'm going to show you the difference in terms of two different roses. One is a sport, one is the original. I'll show you that one. A quick update on some cuttings. I took some cuttings from the South Carolina State Fair. I will show you how those are doing, and one method that I'm trying this time that I have not tried before, at least with hybrid tea roses. And last thing, I'm going to show you how walking the beds can help. I noticed a pest in the garden that you usually don't get in the fall, and I would not have noticed this unless I took a quick walk in the garden. Again, we're not talking spending hours out here, but once or twice a week, I'll kind of walk through the garden. Are there any blooms I can cut to bring inside? How are things doing in the garden? How are the rose bushes performing? And you will notice some slight things that can tip you off to issues, potential issues in the garden. Last thing I want to show you, we do have some weeds in the garden. We sprayed some nutsedge in our garden. That's a weed. I want to show you what chemical I used and how you need to be patient, because I sprayed a week ago and it looks like I did nothing. So I'm probably going to hit it one more time this evening as long as these winds die down enough. But I want to show you the chemical that we use and just a little fall maintenance tips as we head toward winter. So some of the blooms that caught my eye certainly this evening would be Moonstone. Very, very nice rose. Even with some bug damage on this one, you might be able to see the cucumber beetle walking through. As I mentioned, I don't really use insecticide outside of rose show season, so I've got some insects in the garden, but you can tell why this is a nice rose. Beautiful flowers, also very nice foliage. This would be a potential queen right here in the next couple weeks if we had a show to attend to. So Moonstone, a really nice rose, as is a Secret. Very pretty rose. It's fragrant. One of the reasons I keep it is it has exhibition form and it's fragrant. So again, it's not going to be as competitive as a Gemini or Mr. Caleb or Hot Princess, but it can win a queen of show now and then, and you can see why. This is a very well-formed bloom. It's about half open. You can see a pinpoint center, so that's what we look for in a rose show. I didn't cover this bloom, so you can see some blemishes, but there's just nothing wrong with that bloom. Very, very nice. Secret is a rose you can get in your garden. If I'm going to be super picky, one reason it's just a little smaller in bloom size compared to like what I just showed you in terms of Moonstone, but very, very nice. Has a fragrance and also exhibition form, so that is Secret. If you see any of these, this white residue on the leaves, I know I saw that in some rose forms. Yeah, it certainly could be powdery mildew, but in my case, this is Captain and Clary's 336 residue from spraying last week, so that is not any type of disease in the garden. I've talked about this before. What is a rose sport? It's a genetic mutation. These roses here are the same. The original is Folklore, and you can clearly see that's orange. The sport is European Touch. Quick story on this, if you haven't followed my channel for a while, this European Touch, the original bush was in my father's garden. I took it to New York, won third place. I won first, second, third, but third place in the fall 2015 Nationals with European Touch. Dug it up, moved it back to his garden, took a cutting, rooted it, and this is a copy of it. This is European Touch. Then one day I walk out, I see an orange rose on European Touch, it reverted back to the original, which is Folklore, rooted that, and now I have a copy of that. So kind of a quick, neat story, but the bottom line is the original from the 1970s is Folklore. It's an orange rose, and then apricot, a much lighter color, that is European Touch. So kind of a neat thing. It's not growing quite as well as it did for me up north. It's a Cordis rose. So a lot of these roses, it's not that it's growing bad, but the form and the bloom is not as good consistently as it was up north. It's a German bred rose, so it makes sense that it would do at a better latitude climate like I was near Binghamton, New York. One more rose I'm going to show you in terms of looking good. Two of them actually. Let Freedom Ring. The interesting thing about Let Freedom Ring is it's a brilliant red, and it tends to bloom a little later than the other ones. This is one that got broken, or at least damaged, not completely broken, in the last storm that we had. And I just let it be. Again, I let a lot of things be until they prove that they're dead. Look at that nice form on that. That is Let Freedom Ring. It's a nice red. If you're looking for a red, I still prefer Veterans Honor. It's a little more prolific of a bloomer, but Let Freedom Ring is quite a nice one, and I have two of them because of that. Here's one on the other bush in one of the main beds. Actually, one of the first roses I planted in this garden. Not quite as good form on this one, but that's Let Freedom Ring. Speaking of sports, it just caught my eye. Let Freedom Ring is the original. That's a red. And then you can probably see, hopefully clearly, the other one was a lot more clear, orange versus apricot. But that's the original Let Freedom Ring. It's red. And then more of an orange color. This is Zach Noble's. Satish Prabhu found this sport and named it after his grandson here. Very, very nice bloom. That is Zach Noble's. One last bloom. I think I see a nice Veterans Honor here. You probably have noticed in your own garden, things are looking really good in the fall. The bloom size is usually bigger. It's because of the cooler weather. When you have these cooler days, cooler nights, again, we're not talking hard freezes. We're just talking here in our area, it's highs in the 60s and 70s, lows in the 50s. Pretty good rose weather, so Veterans Honor is looking good. One funny thing on sunny Sundays, this is the bush that produced the queen, of course, at the South Carolina State Fair back a couple weeks ago. To make room for the queen, this was the original stem right here. You can see a nice thick stem. To make room for this and to keep any other roses away from the queen and potentially hurting it, I pruned back the rest of the bush. Just pruned it. Anything that had a bud on it, I took it away. And you can see weeks later, everything has responded. This is why we prune, for a show or to get new blooms. Here's a, outward facing bud eye, and here's a new cane. So I don't know if these will make it by our hard freeze here in the winter, but you can see multiple new canes on this and potentially some really nice blooms as we get into November if we don't have a hard freeze. We'll see what happens with that. So that's an update on the garden. The last thing, or one of the things I want to cover before we wrap it up, I'll show you the rose cuttings we're taking. I need to get on this cleaning debris. That's why I'm out here today. So you can see the spores in the garden. Like I said last time, I've got a lot of leaf litter. We're going to have some heavy rains this week. So I'm going to take a leaf blower, blow all of these leaves out of the garden. It's just easier for me to do it, more efficient, and then rake them up and take them away. So I need to clean that up, so I'm going to get on that. The other thing, you see a lot of nut sedge. I have something called sedge killer. I have to make sure I'm saying this right, but sprayed that on the sedge about a week ago. And it looks like it's doing nothing. I've been through here before. It does work, but it takes a while. You might see some slight yellowing of the tips of some of these. With a weed like this that's very mature, if you nip it in the bud, as they say, when it's much, much smaller, you're going to have a much more dramatic effect on the weed than if it's mature. And you can see this on some of them. These are more infant nut sedges, and they're looking like they've been zapped. They're turning yellow, and they're shriveled up a little bit. Whereas a mature one looks like nothing's happening to it. It will eventually die. It's just going to take longer. So the advice with that, if you have mature weeds in the garden, number one, try to hit them before they get mature. The bigger they are, the longer it's going to take to kill them. But number two, whether you have huge weeds in the garden or not, some of these really persistent weeds, nut sedge is just really bad in our yard. I don't know if it came in on the horse manure I got or the municipal compost, Both things are really good for the garden, but boy, it did a number. I've had these weeds here for years. When you do something like the Pro Sedge I'm about to show you, it will work, but sometimes it takes multiple applications. But I still believe in it because I have a lot less of this nut sedge in my garden than I used to. So rather than hand pulling, I continue to use chemical control unless it's right up by the rows. And I've had a lot less nut sedge. So I'm showing you a video of where I have nut sedge, but this bed here is relatively nut sedge free because I've stuck with that program. So let me show you what I've sprayed. But the bottom line is try to get it before the weeds are super mature, because they're a lot harder or take longer to kill. But stay with it. Eventually that product will work. It just might take a second application, especially if you let it get like that in the garden. All right, here's all my chemicals in the shed. And yeah, what I use is this Pro Sedge. Some of the rosarians in my society say it doesn't really, the roses are not sensitive to this, but I always take extra special care when I'm spraying around the roses. I traditionally hand weed, but something like that nut sedge is incredibly hard to get rid of. And you can see the active ingredient in that. So this is just, it comes with an applicator that you do, and I usually do 2 of these per gallon because I want a pretty strong solution. So I do 0.9 grams per gallon. I do that twice per gallon. And you can see from the garden, hardly any difference as of now in a week, but give it some time and you'll start to see some difference, and we'll give you an update on that. Let's head over toward the house. Let's take a look at the budded roses, and let's take a look at the rooted roses. Let's see how they're doing. All right, one thing I haven't done in a long time is taken cuttings. I've had success. I showed you the Folklore and European Touch, Yolande Dargan, an old garden rose I've rooted. So I've had success. But one of the things I'm trying a little bit different this year, at least with hybrid teas, is doing a mist system. I got this timer a couple years ago, and this is more when I tried to root Fortuniana cuttings. And this thing is really neat. You can set it to do different intervals. So for example, I've got it set up right now to go roughly starting in the morning, and every 30 seconds, or it'll water for 30 seconds every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes it clicks on, it sprays them for 30 seconds, and it does that roughly from 7 in the morning until the time I turn it off. So, and I just clicked on, so let's come over here and you can see it in action. So this is nothing fancy. I do not have a misting box, but it works really well. If you get that type of timer and you just set up a normal garden hose, and I'm using a tomato cage, and I have just a normal ball valve shutoff on the end, something that I know you have on the end of your hose. This is to turn on and off your water on a water wand. If you turn it almost completely off, when it turns on, it comes out as a fine mist. And these are the cuttings I'm taking. The one I cared the most about, I think, is doing the best. And this is Miss Kitty, that Sport of Cajun Moon. It's incredibly hard to get. I used to grow it 10 years ago, but Satish Prabhu had an extra one and gave me his at the South Carolina show. I think it's going to take, I'm not a master person at taking cuttings, but it's doing well, and you can see some growth out of the bud eye area. So this plant is doing well. The cutting was taken a couple weeks ago, so it's hanging in there pretty good. One I don't care as much about. I just put them in 4-packs. I've already ordered one from Steve Singer, so that's why I don't care as much about it. But I also was given a Black Magic by another competitor, and I've got 3 of those here. So if they root up, I'll keep them, maybe sell them or give them away to people. But I just wanted to try my hand at that. The one I really want is Miss Kitty. So I took one part of the stem and did a cutting of her, and then I budded 4 more onto Fortuniana, and I'll show you that in a second. But again, this is very, this is definitely rigged. I don't have a mist box. Dr. Malcolm Manners, he does some videos, I think it's University of Florida, on grafting and budding onto Fortuniana and taking cuttings. It's very hard to root Fortuniana. I was able to do it doing this misting technique. He mentioned having a mister and setting it up during the day in the full sunshine, and he has a lot of success rooting something hard like Fortuniana. So this is the first time I've ever done it on hybrid tea roses. Usually I stick them under a jar, stick them into like, a little Tupperware container, put them in the filtered sun, like you've seen on the internet and YouTube, and do it like everybody else. This is the first time it's in full sun, and I'm misting it pretty much from 7 a.m. until dusk every 5 minutes for 30 seconds. We'll see what happens. This timer, again, I bought online, really easy. This is called Instapark, it looks like. I've never heard of this, but I ordered it, and the main thing was I can do intervals of every 5 minutes, 30 seconds, and that's pretty darn cool. I've got it hooked up to my well water so that I'm not wasting any city water on that. We're going to end the video with the other 4 Miss Kitties. I've got a couple headliners there. They are still doing okay. These were grafted at the end of September. It's still green. The bud eye is still green. I am 0% success rate on grafting or budding, so this might be a first in our garden for actually having success. And you can see I took 4 of some budded Miss Kitties and tried to do that. And again, I was given 1 stem of Miss Kitty. I took 4 bud eyes and I grafted those or budded those onto Fortuniana, or excuse me, this is on Multiflora. So I've got 4 grafted plants that I'm trying to do, and then with the rest of the stem, that's where I rooted the one over in the corner of the yard. And so far, so good. These are all green from what I can tell. So hopefully you can see this in the video. It still looks green under the budding tape. So I'm optimistic at least one of these will turn out. These are grafted onto Multiflora. So 4 chances of Miss Kitty grafted onto Multiflora, and then the 5th chance will be that rooted one if it takes hold. I should tell you, I've got a wild Multiflora bush in the corner of our yard. I think the prior owners had like a knockout that was grafted onto Multiflora. It died, or whatever they had died, and I just take pencil length, about 6 to 10 inch length Multiflora, pot them up, and then once they become root bound, I just take this pot, this is Multiflora, and then I graft into the side of this. It's chip budding. So a lot of people that graft onto Multiflora do it when the bark slips. I've never been able to do that. So what I am trying to do is chip bud onto this Multiflora. And that's an example here where I failed, but that's just the leftovers of that. And you can see I have lots of Multiflora in these pots ready to try other ones. It's one thing I've had 0% success, like I said, with regards to grafting in the past. I hope that changes, especially with that Miss Kitty. So what is going on in your garden? I got some feedback from you, what you want to see. Future videos are going to include more information on ordering. I don't have a lot of familiarity with miniature roses, but I'm going to try to learn about that because that was a request. What else do you want to see this fall? What are you doing in your garden? Are you up north? Are your roses already covered? Are you preparing for winter, or are you farther south and still enjoying some of these gorgeous blooms? Comment below, and as always, the best thing you can do is share this information with other rosarians. That's the greatest thanks to this YouTube channel. Have a great one.